Welcome back, everybody, to Niners Now. I'm your host, Brady Grustas, at Grustas Brady on X. You can follow me there. And today it's time for the Week 5 Stock Report. Which 49ers played well against the Rams and which still have some work to do. And of course, stick around until later in the show because Kyle Shanahan has a chance to do something he's never done before. But before we begin, go ahead and subscribe down below. Leave a like, leave a comment, and let's get into it. So let's take a look at the Week 5 stock report. This was obviously a massive win for the Niners, and a lot of guys played well and really contributed to that. I couldn't fit guys like Mac Jones, Eddie Pinheiro, Christian McCaffrey, Jake Tonjes, Fred Warner, Bryce Huff. I couldn't fit any of those guys into this segment. And each of them had a case for it, absolutely. But I had to narrow my list down to just 3 guys with stock up and 3 guys stock down. And the stock up list starts with the breakout receiver, Kendrick Bourne. Bourne had a career day on Thursday. 10 catches for 142 yards with his mom in attendance. Apparently his mom's birthday was this weekend, so happy birthday to her. I'm sure getting to see that game was an excellent present. It was very, very enjoyable. Bourne had a bit of a boneheaded drop on a big third down early in the game, and it would have easily gotten the first down, so he was off to a bit of a rough start. But after that play, he really leaned forward in his chair and locked in. He was getting open, he was catching everything, and he was fighting for key extra yards. There were a lot of moments in this game when the offense needed a big play, and in nearly every single one of those moments, Kendrick Bourne rose to the occasion. It was a massive turnaround from a really horrendous game last week. He went from what was probably the worst game of his career to maybe the best in just the span of a short week. And he did it all with his former Patriots teammate Mac Jones, with his former team, the 49ers. I'm sure that was a pretty awesome feeling for KB. And this is exactly the type of performance the Niners needed on Thursday. They needed a guy to step up against all odds and just play out of his mind like Kendrick Bourne did. And they might need another game like that one against the Buccaneers because the Bucs looked fantastic in their game against Seattle on Sunday. Mecca Egbuka and Baker Mayfield, they are balling right now. Regardless, though, of whatever happens in Week 6, stock up for Kendrick Bourne for sure. Speaking of fantastic games, how about the rookie Alfred Collins? Collins really had to step up on Thursday after Kalia Davis went down with an injury after only a few plays. So Collins took over and played 40 snaps in this game, which is by far a career high and tied for the most of all defensive tackles, tied with Jordan Elliott. Both of them played 40 for the 49ers. And in those snaps for Collins, you saw everything that showed up on his Texas tape. You saw the strength to hold down double teams. You saw the foot speed and how it lets him beat blockers, sometimes just off of pure effort. And you saw his athleticism. I've been talking about it since Niners Now began. Collins is a big dude, but he will lay out to make a play. And that's exactly what he did on Thursday. He dove out in front of Kyren Williams on the 1-yard line and knocked out the football with a phenomenal haymaker punch. I still get so fired up every time I think about that play. We are seeing the young guys on this defense start to come alive, and it's happening earlier than expected. It looks like Kalia Davis will miss at least a week or two, so we're going to get to see a lot of Alfred Collins in October, and I am personally very excited for that. After his up and down summer, I was ready for Collins to be a year-long development project. But if he can play like he did against the Rams, even without the forced fumble, then I think he is well on his way to being a full-time starter for this defense. And he's going to have his hands full next week against the Buccaneers, but it is certainly stock up for Alfred Collins this week. And last but not least, there is another young guy on defense who's really struggled so far this season. That's cornerback Renardo Green. But Green was awesome against the Rams. On 9 targets, Green only allowed 3 catches for 34 yards. He was all over Davante Adams in particular. Adams had a couple big catches, but when Green was covering him, he was pretty quiet. The Niners really needed Renardo to bounce back. The secondary has been a weak spot on this defense so far this year, and Renardo has really struggled in his new role. He's being tasked with a lot more one-on-one coverage this year. People have described it as a more traditional CB1 type of role, right? The type of coverages that Charvarius Ward would play in the past few years for this team. Green isn't getting as much help from double teams this year, and so for the first 3 weeks, he kind of struggled. But the fact that he's in this role in the first place is a sign that Saleh really trusts Renardo. He's essentially saying, hey, listen, we'll scheme up some coverages and some brackets and some double teams, and we'll try to limit Puka Nacua, for example, on the other side of the field. But I need you, in order for that to work, I need you to shut down Davante Adams by yourself. That is a very, very tall task, but Green did that on Thursday. It was a huge test, and Green passed with flying colors. Thank goodness, because the Niners play an absolute gauntlet of wide receivers coming up. You've got Emeka Egbuka and Chris Godwin next week, Drake London the week after, and Nico Collins the week after that. So Renardo Green having his best game of the season, it's really encouraging. And we're going to need more games like this one from Mr. Renardo Green going forward. Now, it was not all sunshine and rainbows, however. This was an extremely close game, and some 49ers were really outmatched by the Rams. I've got 3 Niners who lowered their stocks on Thursday, and that's got to start with the breakout linebacker, D. Winters. This was easily the worst game of Winters' season. He's been phenomenal so far playing next to Fred Warner, but my goodness, he looked lost out there on Thursday. He gave up a bad touchdown, he had a dropped interception, and he was out of position in coverage constantly. We give Kyle Shanahan a lot of credit for attacking linebackers and forcing them into conflict, but Sean McVay does a lot of the same things. And I think that was very clear based on how he got D. Winters this week. I'm not too worried in the long term. I know it was a bad week for D, but I don't think we're going to face as many offensive play callers who are as good as Sean McVay going forward. Obviously, the Niners will have to face McVay one more time this year, but there's not a lot of guys in this league who can do what McVay does. And sure, there's high-powered offenses on the schedule, but it's the scheming and the wizardry that really puts guys like D. Winters in conflict and forces him to break the rules of his own defense. And I think that that's a large reason why D struggled this week. I think D was flying around and he still looked fast, but he just didn't really know where to go. And that indicates that to me it's all mental, right? And if it's mental, then I think I attribute that to Sean McVay and his lovely work with their offense. You know, it's really weird. Winters' coverage in particular has been the best aspect of his game so far this season. And in week 5, it completely fell off a cliff. We're really going to need a big bounce back from him in week 6. Stock down for D. Winters. Like Robert Saleh said, this season's going to have ups and downs, especially for a young defense. We saw ups from Alfred Collins and Renardo Green this week, and we saw some pretty tough weeks from D. Winters and the next guy on my stock down list, Marquise Siegel. To put it simply, other teams have discovered that Siegel exists. Matthew Stafford was hunting Siegel down on every play. He was looking for number 36, and he was throwing it right at him. And that strategy was working. Siegel gave up a few huge catches, one downfield to Tutu Atwell late in the game. One he was manned up against the rookie tight end Terrence Ferguson, couldn't get his hand on it. Every single game, Siegel is giving up chunk plays, and I like Siegel as a player, but this is an issue. He gets caught every single week with his eyes looking the wrong way. Literally every week. And when the margins of victory are already so thin for this Niners team, you can't afford to give up big plays like this over and over and over again. Now, I'm not calling for Siegel to be benched. I think you gotta let him play it out because he's a smart guy. The more he sees, the better I think he will become. But for right now, this is a real problem for the 49ers defense. And if they can't figure out a real pass rush plan, then Siegel's going to be vulnerable a whole lot more this year. I think overall, Siegel had honestly an okay game. He was a huge part of that that overtime stop on 4th down that clinched the win. And his value is clear, right? You watch Siegel play, and he'll make a play and you're like, oh, that's why he's out on the field, right? He is a quick trigger safety who's really fast running downhill, and he's getting better and better and better as a tackler. And his instincts, they really show up in plays like that stop on Kyren Williams. He was all over that thing. But still, it is stock down for Siegel because we're starting to see the pattern of his coverage, and we're starting to see teams really exploit that coverage and target it excessively. Now, one more stock down guy. It's unfortunately another rookie. It's Connor Colby. Colby got off to a great start in week 2 against the Saints, but he's really come back down to earth in the 3 games since then. Colby's a player who he has some really good plays and some really bad plays. And that is not what you want out of an offensive guard. That is a position where you've got to have consistency and reliability. And Colby is not delivering that yet. He looks like a rookie out there, right? He's been playing a little bit frantic. He's allowed 14 pressures so far this season, which is tied for the most in the NFL by any guard. Ben Bartch wasn't really much good before his injury, but the Niners may need Bartch to come back and kind of settle everything down. Bartch went on IR in week 2, so in theory, he's getting closer to a return, but haven't really heard much about him lately. But anyways, Colby is struggling. In the run game, in the passing game, he's got some flashes and he's got some real bad plays. It's been an issue for sure for this offense. Mac Jones was getting slammed a couple times thanks to Connor Colby. So stock down for Colby for sure. Stock up for Kendrick Bourne, Alfred Collins, and Bernardo Green. Stock down for D. Winters, Marquise Siegel, and of course, Connor Colby. Do you think that I got it right this week? Are there any standouts from week 5 that you think I missed? Go ahead, let me know in the comments down below. Now, the 49ers, they're sitting at 4-1 heading into week 6. And if you look around the league, you'll notice that the Niners are in a big group of teams with that record. The Colts, Lions, Eagles, and Buccaneers are all 4-1 as well. The Bills are currently playing, but if they looked like they did in that first half, they'll probably fall to 4-1 as well. Which means the 49ers are currently tied for the number 1 seed in the NFC. Now, that's a little bit disingenuous to talk about, obviously. It is so early in the season. There's a lot of football left to play, right? It's not even really worth talking about playoff seeding yet. However, this is great news, right? You would much rather be in this position than on the outside looking in. The Niners are going to get a shot at one of those 4-1 teams next week when they play Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. And later in the year, they'll play the Colts with Indiana Jones or Daniel Jones. But the Niners are keeping pace with some of the best teams in the NFL, despite missing 8 starters last week. We've talked about it all year, but this is what a last place schedule can get you. The 49ers have been stashing wins so far and learning how to win ugly. They're in the toughest stretch of their schedule right now. The Rams, Buccaneers, and Texans have all shown some really good stuff so far this year. Texans just got a huge win over the floundering Baltimore Ravens. And the Falcons, who they also play in this next 4-week span, they're 2-2, right? They're not exactly pushovers. So if the 49ers can get through the next 3 weeks, if they can get through the next 3 weeks, let's say 2-1 or even 3-0, then they'll have 6 wins already heading into the trade deadline. And that type of performance, that's legit. You know, the trade deadline, I believe, is after week 9. So if you got 6 wins minimum heading into that trade deadline, you're in a good spot. You're a good team, and you should be making a push for the playoffs. If the 49ers can use this weaker schedule to keeping pace with those top teams in the NFL, then I think it's very likely that John Lynch will be aggressively trying to swing big in the trade market. And that's exactly what I want to see. Take advantage of this schedule. Even if you've got to win 16-15, or you've got to win on a turnover on downs in overtime because your entire offense is injured. Doesn't matter how you do it. Win these games and then take advantage of those wins by adding real contributors at the trade deadline and make a serious playoff run. The more playoff experience that the young guys on this roster get, the better. And of course, if you can ride this momentum all the way to a Super Bowl, I certainly wouldn't complain. So through the first 5 weeks of the year, the 49ers have put themselves in a position to be aggressive at the trade deadline. Go get a guy like Trey Hendrickson. Go get a guy like Bradley Chubb or Jeffrey Simmons or whoever. Go get a guy like that and keep stacking those wins. Get better as the season goes on instead of getting worse like you did last year. Now, for our last segment today, I've got to talk about a storyline that kind of started to emerge on social media after the Niners got their statement win on Thursday night in prime time. Is Kyle Shanahan the front runner for Coach of the Year? Well, according to Vegas, not yet. Kyle has the 10th best odds to win Coach of the Year, according to BetMGM's sportsbook. Now, these odds update all the time, and they haven't updated since the end of September, so maybe the Rams game will push things in Kyle's favor. But betting odds don't tell the full story. Is there anyone, and answer this honestly in the comments, is there anyone doing a better coaching job than Kyle Shanahan right now? He has never won Coach of the Year before, but this year might be too hard for the voters to ignore. We just talked all about how the Niners are somehow in the race for the 1 seed in the NFC. They're 4-1 through 5 games, including 3 division wins. They're the most injured team in the NFL. And Shanahan was on fire in the Rams game. He was perfectly aggressive. He was going for it in all the right spots. Those tight end screens have been working all year long. The CMC touchdown catch was a gorgeous design. And then the touchdown at Tonjes, too. He schemed him wide open, got the Rams defense all out of position. The one thing that's been missing to me for Kyle is the run game. And I'd argue that they're not running anything new in that area. It's a lack of execution more than it is poor play calling. I think that's why the run game has been bad. But Kyle has had the deck stacked against him all year long because of these injuries, right? And still, it's not an excuse. He has this team fighting and clawing for every win they can get, even when it's ugly. And to be honest, it's ugly pretty often. But so far, this has been one of the best seasons of Kyle Shanahan's career, in my opinion. Now, what he has to do next, of course, is get that run game working and continue to win games. That is absolutely mandatory if the 49ers want any chance of going deep in the playoffs this year. So, what do you think? Is Kyle Shanahan the Coach of the Year so far? Let me know down below. Leave a comment, leave a like, and let me know if there's any topics that you'd like to see me cover. Thank you all for watching, and subscribe for 49ers videos 5 days a week. I'm Brady Grustas at Grustas Brady on X. This has been Niners Now, and I'll see you tomorrow.